Hi, everybody. I'm John Kenlon, Senior Vice President at Ensemble IQ and publisher of Drugstore News. Welcome to Top Women in Health, Wellness, and Beauty. The mission is to recruit, to develop, to retain female talent in our industry and show those women a way to get to the C-suite. One of the women that has made it to the mountaintop is with us today, and that is Senator Shelley Moore Capito, Republican, West Virginia, one of only 24 U.S. senators, female U.S. senators. So grateful to have you here, Senator, with us. And very grateful also to Lynn Fruth and Fruth Pharmacy for helping to make this happen. Finally, our sponsors who believe in this mission have really gotten behind it, not just today, but every day. And they are Unilever, GSK, Beiersdorf, Bausch & Lomb, and Coca-Cola. Thank you guys so much for doing this. You don't want to hear me anymore. Let's hear from Senator Capito. Senator, thank you, and it's all yours.
All right, John. Well, thank you. And good, I guess it's afternoon now, at least it is here on the East Coast. Good afternoon to everybody. I am actually at home in West Virginia. We are on a 1-week recess, probably well needed after some of the tension that is on Capitol Hill, as many of you know about. But John, thanks for the opportunity. And I want to thank my good friend, Lynn Fruth. She is a force to be reckoned with here in West Virginia. We've worked really well. I've toured several of her facilities with Lynn, but she also, I think, is a problem solver, you know, an originator of good ideas and ways to help solve some of the issues. And I'll give you a good example of this, where I think Lynn's really been a real leader here. And this has been in the area of the opioid addiction issue. And Lynn, we know in our state that we've been highly affected by this, and it's been very difficult for our families and our communities. And actually, we've seen post-COVID that it's actually hit us a lot harder than it had in the past, which is really discouraging because we were making some headway. But we know that when somebody is in treatment and they are going to have success, they have to have transitions. And sometimes those transitions are cut off from people who have been addicted simply because they may have a legal issue, or they may have already gone through their educational funding to help them. And so Lynn started a foundation, and I think a lot of other folks in the business that are friends with Lynn have helped her on the funding of this to help, do almost like grants or scholarships to individuals who really need that extra little hand to be able to get them to transition to work. And I met one of her students with Lynn one day, and that was the recipient early on. And so I hope that, I think that's still ongoing. She's doing it through our Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation. But that's an example of how I think we as women approach a lot of the problems. Yes, we have problems, but there's solutions, and we need to work for solutions. And we also need to engage other folks who are like-minded to help us find those solutions. So it's always great to be with Lynn and to hear she's very passionate, and I certainly appreciate that. You all played a strong role in the last year and a half, a very different role, I think, for some people. You're being asked in your retail pharmacies to do different things that you may have done before, maybe some more testing, shots, other things that were not the original probably, or in the wheelhouse of what you're doing. And so thank you for those adjustments. Thank you for the safe measures of which you move forward on that. And also thank you for holding a lot of hands. I'm sure that many questions that you've received in your stores, whether it's at the pharmacy or whether it's just trying to buy some kind of a product related to possible COVID, whether it's a cleaning product or something like that, you've gotten a lot of questions. And I think you filled a big void for us. So certainly appreciate that. I know that you have these seminars talking about trying to get more women into these fields, and it's a challenge. Your field in health, in wellness, and pharmacy, and others, other retail health business are underrepresented. And we are in the Senate too. I want to tell you that, where I am the first woman to be elected from the state of West Virginia, something I'm very, very proud of. And I serve with several women who are the first from their states. And then I get to serve with some women who have another woman as their senator. So that would be California, for instance, or New Hampshire. 2 women represent both senators from that state are female. That's unusual. And then there are some that have never elected a woman to the United States Senate. So I'm proud of my state for stepping forward and not being at the end of that list. And people ask us a lot of times, like, how do you get along? We get along very well, even over the political gaps of our political philosophies. The vice president had us to her house. The first female vice president had us to the vice president's house for a bipartisan dinner, and we thoroughly enjoyed the camaraderie and the relationship building, and certainly getting to see her in her new post is exciting because, several months ago, she was just one of us. And so I think that it's important that when you reach these milestones, for instance, I know many of your major companies are being led by women, that those women become the inspirations for the next generation. And it's no different in the Congress. We try to mentor, we stick together a lot. I think, even though it's a man's world, we do stick together a lot. We try to co-sponsor each other's bills. We try to be supportive of each other in our personal lives as well, because my business is a lot like yours. It's all about relationships. And the more I can build relationships within the US Senate or with the cabinet and other folks, the better I'm going to do, or the more persuasive I can be. And I'm sure that's the same with you all as well. So, and I think, without categorizing, I think women understand that better. If I look back, the first time that I ran for office in 1996, I ran for the House of Delegates. There were very few women. I was raised in a political family, so I had a bit of an advantage in that I knew what it was going to be like, or should I say, I thought I knew what it was going to be like. And who did I rely on? I relied on all the women that were homeroom mothers with me, whose kids were playing volleyball and soccer and football and basketball and all the different, and I called them my bleacher buddies, because we sat on the bleachers together a lot and talked about a lot of things. Besides the game, we talked a lot about that too. But then when I said I want to do this, they were so supportive. And honestly, I don't think I could have been elected without my bleacher buddies. And those relationships are some of the strongest ones I have to this day. And so those are the kinds of things that you want to build as you're moving on. And then to try to take on the task of meeting that next generation, inspiring that next generation. And so because there are so few women in some of the STEM fields, because there are so few women at the top of the political spectrum, and particularly in my state, I started a program called West Virginia Girls Rise Up, where I go to the 5th grade classroom and I talk about, I picked, for those of you who are mothers out there or parents, that before you get to middle school is a good time to catch a young lady, a young woman. And so I picked 5th grade because that's right at they understand, but they're not quite as into themselves, shall I say, as I certainly was in junior high or middle school. So we talk about how do you, and I take guests with me. I took an astronaut with me, took a fire chief with me. I took another congresswoman with me. I took the West Virginia University gymnastics team with me. Oh, they loved that. And so, to try to say, how did you get to be, how did you get to be at the top of your field or do well in your field, or how did you decide what you wanted to do? And I talk about, the things that I thought about when I was their age and the insecurities that I might have had. And it's funny because my report card, they all say Shelley needs to speak up more. And, that's all I do now is speak publicly and talk publicly. So, how do you do that? You practice, you work on it, you challenge yourself, you don't be afraid to fail. So we talk a lot about confidence building, education, and wellness. And I've been to probably 25 schools. I was on pace to get to almost 50, but then COVID hit, and obviously the schools are a little hesitant. But we're going to get back on that horse in the next 2 weeks to talk to the young ladies. And I always try to go to the places where I think they probably don't have the chance to have a lot of guests into their elementary school, where the parents maybe don't have friends or coworkers that are willing to come and do things such as this to sort of do some confidence building. So that's been, I think, a real good program, and something that I think you could do in any field to talk to the next generation. I think that in terms of the STEM field issues, I have worked with a lot of, I'm really working a lot with Cortez Masto, who's a Democrat in, Cortez Masto is a Democrat in New Mexico, but I'm working with the other woman, which is Jackie Rosen. I work with Cortez Masto too, but Jackie Rosen, who came out of tech. So she understands STEM, very successful businesswoman. And we seem to sort of click on these things. And so we're trying to work on ways to get more STEM education, more STEM inspiration into the younger years. I mean, you can't start when you're a junior in high school. You've got to start with robotics and other things into the third, fourth, and fifth grade, where you can inspire the confidence and really the interest in some of the science fields. And so that's where we've worked together, and I think hopefully we'll have some success. And mostly that's funding programs, grant programs, and other things to help get some of these mentoring kinds of things off the ground. And so I've participated in that. But many of you are leaders in your field in the pharmaceutical companies, in the pharmacist world, also in the retail business world. Everything's changing so much. When we see what the digitization of our health records, of our abilities to shop, of the way people shop, of the way people work, I think it's a real exciting time to be a part of that. But if you look at healthcare in general, here's what I look at it, because we deal with it obviously a lot. It is so complicated for the average individual to figure out if they're insured, how they're insured, what's their deductible, how do they meet that challenge. That's where you all are just so incredibly helpful to everybody who comes into your drugstore, or that you meet, on the street, or even if you meet on the bleachers. Like I met a lot of people when I first got started. And so I just want to thank you for that, because I think that is an important part of certainly what's happened in this pandemic. But also, when I think about the spectrum of people that rely on you, and I have a particular soft spot in my heart for our seniors who may be a little bit challenged, maybe either starting into dementia, but also challenged economically, how you help them every single day. Because I'll end as I began, we're problem solvers. We want to find out, like Lynn does every day, how do we solve the problem, rather than just analyze the problem, throw up our hands and say, this is too big, I can't figure it out. And so I just appreciate what you do every day. And I'm just happy. I've worked on a lot of issues with the pharmacies, some of the chain drugstores and others, to try to work on this reimbursements issues and all this, what is it called, DIR, and all this kind of stuff that's so complicated but so impactful for you all to be able to deliver your service. So thank you for that. Let's hope for a healthier country. I think we're going in that right direction, and let's be part of that solution. And anything I can do to inspire the next generation of female leadership, I'm ready and willing. So I'll leave it at that. And I don't know, John, I think you said you might have had some questions that you might want to ask.
Yeah, I do. And I appreciate your remarks so much. You're right. This is a business that's made up of problem solvers. A lot of times retail pharmacy, if you just get us involved early, we can fix it, or we can help fix it. And I think retail pharmacy working together with government makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. We can play a big role. You mentioned celebrating milestones, couldn't agree more. We need to do that. And I think we're doing more of that as an industry, recognizing achievement, celebrating it. And also you said that women should maybe collaborate more and not view each other as competitors. Yeah, I don't think you use those exact words, but there's plenty of room at the top. So it should be more of a collaborative type of effort and be supportive. I love the comment about the bleachers and being a mom and being an executive. It's not easy. Encouraging STEM, getting women into that, young ladies into that early, and then mentoring is key. Do you have time for a couple of questions?
Sure, of course, yes.
Okay. You touched on it before, but you started off your professional career as a teacher. How has teaching made you a better senator?
Well, I really think when people ask me, what is the skill that you think is best for a leader or a teacher? I find myself defaulting to this, maybe because I can't come up with anything else, but I do believe this is the most important, and that is to be a good listener. You have to be able, and to be a successful, I think, in politics, you should be a good listener. Now, we all know we're good at bloviating on the political scene, but unless you're listening to what people are telling you or how they're feeling or how certain issues hit them, you can't really react and do, I don't think, the right thing. So being a teacher, I think, is about being a listener. If I want to tell you about a certain vote that I have to listen to why you don't like my vote. Normally, people don't ask you why you voted for something if it's what they want. Normally, and I got this twice already today, they ask you if it's something that they don't like. How could you do that? Why did you do that? So I have to be able to listen to hear what they're asking me, and then to try to explain to them in regular terms why I made the vote that I made, or why I made comments that I made, or whatever it could be. And so listening is key first. And then I think also when you're teaching, you have to go. My father was in politics, and I remember one of the first things I was quoted on, one of the things in the newspaper, I said something like, well, that's just deja vu. And my dad says, Shelley, what is deja vu? People don't understand what that is. Some people do, a lot of people do. We think of it. So you have to kind of center your thoughts very simplistically so that you can hit everybody and you're not just speaking to one audience or another.
Hear, hear. I vote for listening to each side a little bit more and really listening. You might hear them and not be listening. Let's listen.
Exactly.
So here's another question. Okay. So you're the first female senator in West Virginia. At what point in your life did you think, I want to be in the Senate? And what inspired that decision? And did you ever doubt yourself? And if you did, how did you overcome that doubt?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because I started in the House of Delegates, and I thought, well, I'll here in West Virginia, which was a part-time job. I loved it, serving in the State House. And I thought to myself, well, I'll just stay here for 20 years. This is great. You know, it's challenging me enough. It's not. And then our congressman retired. And then all of a sudden I've got people coming up to me going, you need to run for Congress. And it had never dawned on me to run for Congress, literally never dawned on me. So I finally listened to other people, and certain people told me, you know, you can't wait for the right moment. You have to wait. You know, timing is critical in politics. This is the best time to do this, make this decision. So I ran and won by a little bit. So then I served in the House for 14 years. As my service was going on to about 10 years, I started thinking, am I being as effective as I want to be? I'd like to have a bigger voice. And I sort of looked at running for governor, but I didn't really think of myself as an executive so much. And I started looking to the Senate, and I finally just decided I'm going for it. It's sort of like I'm going up or I'm going out. And it was really because I wanted a big, so I had never thought about being in the Senate really until probably 4 years before I actually ran, which sounds like a long time, but in politics, again, you have to sort of game it out. And I knew I was going to be challenging at that point an incumbent, which was Jay Rockefeller. So I made an announcement 2 years before I actually, 2 years, so I had to have a 2-year campaign. But it was basically to get a louder voice, to get a more powerful voice. And it hit me right away. Once I got elected, by the way, Senator Rockefeller retired, so that kind of solved running against an incumbent. But once I got in, immediately, like 2 days into the job, somebody's having problems with Fish and Wildlife, which is a federal agency. And if you're a House member and you call Fish and Wildlife, you might get a call back, you might not, because there's 435. I called Fish and Wildlife as a United States Senator, and that thing got solved immediately. Now, I don't know if it's because I was on the Appropriations Committee, that could have something to do with it, but it's just your voice is more powerful. You're in many more issues. Like, for instance, I'm not on the Health Committee, which is, obviously health where a lot of the issues fall, but I do a lot of stuff in health and have been very active there because I'm interested in it. And so, and because it impacts so much. So I would say, have I ever doubted myself? Yes. I mean, I wouldn't even be honest if I hadn't said I doubted myself. I've doubted whether I'm being as effective. So one day, our teenage son was not doing what I wanted him to do. And I said to him, I said, you should be doing what I'm telling you to do because I'm telling you the right thing to do. So he's like 17 or something. And I said, but by the way, I am in the United States Congress and I have a lot of power. And he looked at me and he said, Mom, you don't have any power if you don't use it. And that has stuck with me because think about it. I can think I'm powerful and maybe my position's powerful, but if I don't learn how to use it, it's useless. So that's where my doubts come in. To be quite honest with you, am I using my power and am I using it to the best of my ability? And that, I think, is everybody grows. You hear people learn, they grow. That's my growing part for me.
Wow, that's such a great answer. I love that. Thank you for
Thanks.
being so honest and sharing that with us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, one more question.
Yeah.
And this is an industry question. Retail pharmacies like Fruth have played an important role treating and vaccinating West Virginians during COVID. Do you think the role of retail pharmacy can grow when it comes to providing healthcare?
Do I think that their role can grow?
That the role of like a Fruth pharmacy or others in retail pharmacy can grow when it comes to delivering healthcare.
I think absolutely. I think the answer to that is yes. When I think of my own life, I mean, I can walk up the street almost and get to a pharmacy. I mean, I live in a fairly wooded area, a suburban area, but close to where the pharmacy and some other stores are. So proximity, access, particularly in rural America, that's what we have to preserve. It's critical because if we rely on, and there's nothing wrong with a Walmart or a big or a Kroger pharmacy or something like that, larger, but a lot of times it's 20, 30 miles for some people or 40 miles to get to a pharmacy. And, and so those smaller pharmacies are absolutely, critical, not small, smaller pharmacies are absolutely critical for access, for delivery, for being able to, I remember we got into a discussion, oh gosh, it's been several years ago, that how to reimburse a pharmacist for the time they spend actually talking to and I think we ironed some of that issues out because that's value. If Medicare is going to value a pharmacist or a pharmacist assistant even to deliver what your possible side effects could be, or if you're having a side effect, is this something, or how many do I need, or any kinds of questions, this all takes time. It takes education and time and effort. And if we didn't have that ability to face with people, I don't know what we do. Now, here's the problem. And I can't predict this. I don't know what this is going to look like in 20 years. Everybody's been working from home. We can't get people back to work. People order stuff, everything on the internet that they didn't do even 5 years ago. They weren't doing. I mean, to be honest with you, I did that Instacart with groceries because I was quarantining. I would have never thought to do that. And so I think that's where I think the challenge is for retail pharmacies, is to figure out how to keep meeting those needs. And that's going to be difficult for the smaller ones in more rural areas, because if you it's just capacity. I mean, can you do this, and can you deliver it? And so, we want to do everything we can to preserve that, because I think that is absolutely critical to get the best health outcomes across the board.
Yeah, and I think the industry agrees. Those are the watchwords: convenience, access, cost, quality, and the idea that they're open. A lot of medical providers weren't open during the pandemic. Retail pharmacy was.
Right. Yeah.
So thank you. You really know your stuff. We appreciate your support. Thank you so much for doing this today. Senator Shelley Moore Capito, Republican, West Virginia, one of only 24 women in the U.S. Senate. Thank you. Thank you, Lynn Fruth and Fruth Pharmacy, and thank you to Unilever, GSK, Beiersdorf, Bausch & Lomb, and Coca-Cola for supporting the mission. Senator, I hope we get to do it again with you sometime. This is really wonderful, and the best of luck running the country.
All right. Yeah. We're working on that. Thank you, John.
All right.
Thanks so much.
All right. Be well. To our audience, thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye now.